A new Game Boy Advance came out this year, in the year 2024. And we need to talk about it. Yo, what up y'all? Intravenous here, back with another episode, and today we're taking a look at the Neocade Games Expert. This is a new Game Boy Advance clone type console that was released from Piko Interactive and Blaze Pro in collaboration with the company called Neocade. This one is blue. It looks like it comes in 5 colors, and it comes with 40 officially licensed Piko Interactive games. And these games span across more than just the 4 Piko Interactive game carts that you can get for the EverDrive, if you know what that is. It's a more recent cartridge-based gaming handheld. I was actually really excited to see this. It popped up on Amazon.com, and it is listed for $69.99. Though when I bought it, it had a little check mark to get 20% off, so I spent $50 on this. I don't know anything about this company. In fact, I looked it up online, and there isn't even a website. So first, we're going to get it out of here, and then we need to talk about this thing. It's very unique. Pretty well packaged. We got a simple manual here in multiple languages. And here is our game console. Very large buttons, especially the D-pad. And you'll notice the L and R buttons are next to start and select. They're on the front. The back has nothing but a cartridge slot. It's very flat. It's kind of like a little brick. Actually, there's something about this I kind of like. It feels very sturdy. There's a memory card slot. I don't know what that does, and we'll also talk about that. In here, you also get a USB-C charging cable, of course, and it's nice and all white. That's the only thing left in here, so let's go ahead and take a closer look. Alright y'all, so flash forward to the future here. I have been using this for a couple days, and there's a lot to talk about here. I'm not really sure who this is for, or why it actually came out this year, and without any really mention. I haven't seen anybody talk about this, I haven't seen any advertising, and I can't even find a website for this Neocade company, the Games Expert. This does do cartridges, which is pretty freaking awesome. And it also has those 40 built-in games, and a lot of those are pretty awesome too. But there's a couple huge fails here. And those mainly come down to the volume and the screen. But let's go ahead and power it on. You hold down this button on the side for 3 seconds, and you'll get your Neocade splash screen. We got volume buttons over here. Like I said, there's a micro SD card, but I honestly have not been able to figure out how to get that to work at all. I've tried putting many different types of files and ROMs. I put it in there and it doesn't read them. But normally I would think you would select this with it in there, and I do, but it's empty when I go in the menu. So I don't have an SD card in there. I'm not sure. If y'all know anything about this, please let me know in the comments. Here's your screen. And on first glance, not too bad, but your viewing angles are very poor from the sides. Not too bad from the top and bottom. But when it comes to spending, say, $70 on something like this, and then you compare it to your screen on an actual Game Boy Advance that you may have modded, well, there's quite a difference there. Size comparison, they're actually almost the same size, just different shapes. And like I said, there is something charming, I want to say, about this. It's just special, very unique. The battery life seems pretty good. It's solid. I haven't had it freeze up or anything. But, well, let's go ahead and load a game. Right now, we've got Super Mario Kart in there. So we go to our cartridge menu and select it. And you're going to end up with this loading screen. So what is actually happening here is it is dumping the ROM, I assume. And then you're going to play it emulated. This is more or less exactly how the Retron 5 works from Hyperkin. And when the game does load, sometimes you'll end up with 1 or 2 audio glitches or skips, and then it just runs fine. It's like it's loading up initially, and it's like click, click. So this is as low as the volume gets here. It doesn't get that low, which is a gripe of mine, because I like to play my Game Boy in different scenarios, and sometimes I want it to be pretty quiet so I can just barely hear it. It's a little loud. It's also very trebly. Let's turn it up. It gets ridiculously loud, but the audio quality isn't really that great. So that's one of the main fails here. It does, however, play really well. And right now you're looking at a stretched aspect ratio. But if we press start and select together, not only are we greeted with save and load states, but you can do scan lines, which are terrible in my opinion. And you can change the aspect ratio. This would be your regular, this is shrunken down actually. I guess this would be the regular. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. That's like a Game Boy Micro, sort of. Everything looks really crisp like that, not gonna lie. But where we'd like to keep it is right here. And it actually does remember that every time you play Game Boy Advance games. So you won't have to change that aspect ratio when doing that. So with these L and R buttons at the top, sometimes it might actually be kind of useful. I actually find when I'm doing this game, I hold my thumb, the bottom of my thumb, on the A button, and then I can use the top to hit the right trigger to do my jumps. However, there are certain games where you're going to want to be playing with your fingers on these L and R buttons. The reason they're there as triggers is because you have these extra free fingers you can use, and you don't want to use your thumbs for all of the buttons because sometimes you can't press them all at once. So that is that's another flaw, I'd have to say. Those certain games, it is actually very handy, and you know, it just depends on the way you prefer to play. Actually, if you're one of those people that like to play with just one hand, or perhaps you need to play flat on a table, well, this actually works really well because you have access to all of those buttons. To turn the console off, you hit the power button on the side and select continue. Now, the manual that this comes with is very, very simple indeed. In fact, you only get 2 pages in 10 different languages or so. And those pages go as follows. The first one tells you not to get it wet and to make sure not to use any thinners, gasoline, or alcohol solvents on it. The other one shows a picture with all the buttons, and it tells you to power off the console before inserting or removing a game cartridge in the slot. I thought that seemed a little inconvenient, and though I have actually successfully swapped cartridges by just going back to that home screen and removing it, putting in a new one and selecting cartridge again, it does say to turn it off and on, so I have been doing that after I tested it out. And you know, if you wanted to swap cartridges on a Game Boy Advance, you'd have to turn it off and on, so that's not too big of a gripe here. One problem that you might find is a deal breaker, though, is it does not work with an easy flash card, and that's because, just like the Retron 5, it's working with emulation and dumping the card and then playing it, instead of just running the card right off the bat, so it can't use these flash cards, and thus, you have to have all your cards. Because I haven't, you know, it would be great if you could put the games in here, and I've tried it, but I don't know if they just left that out. You know, there is a little settings menu where it says the software version is 1.0. Maybe they're planning on doing some sort of update. Because if you put a Game Boy or Game Boy Color cartridge in here, they actually lock in. It feels like it would play, and on Amazon.com in the description it says it is compatible with Game Boy and Game Boy Color cartridges. Most of them it says, but in fact, it only seems to work with Game Boy Advance. So, you know, this thing's really interesting. What do you guys think about this? The problem with dumping your emulation is, well, you can't save to the cartridge. Sure, you can grab your save from, say, I'll put in Zelda Minish Cap, and my save that I started on my Game Boy Advance will be there. But if I tried to save and continue, it won't be able to write to the cartridge, so it just freezes when you try to save the game. Instead, you have to use your load states and your save states, which is okay, I guess, but it just means that you're going to be wanting to dedicate your gameplay to this and not so much swapping it around between different consoles. One of the big bonuses I thought from this would be, hey, it's like a lower quality, kind of toss around, sturdy Game Boy Advance that I could bring with me and maybe continue my games when I don't want to bring my really nice Game Boy Advance with me. But fact of the matter is, if I take that game and I put it in here, well, I can't go then from here and back over there because I'm saving with save states that are locked on here. So I have been playing Pokemon Glazed for a few hours on this, and I'm using all save states, and it works well. I'm enjoying it. I really want to like this thing. I want to like it a lot, but the screen, the speaker, and the save state issue make it a little bit of a deal breaker for me. However, if I did not have a Game Boy Advance, I would love this thing. I really would, because I wouldn't be swapping carts to other devices. I would just need to be using my actual cart collection, because I can't use my Easy Flash. And I can do this on my Game Boy Advance. If you don't know what this is, it has a micro SD card on the side. I have all the ROMs loaded up in there. I have every Game Boy Advance game on there. Pop this in there. You can select them from a menu. You can even play Game Boy games and Game Boy Color games and NES games, which I thought would be a cool trick on here, because then I could load this on there and we could use this to play the Game Boy and Game Boy Color games that I mentioned. But unfortunately, you cannot. So, you know, finally, I think we should just do some gameplay on here. I'm going to show you a few of these cartridges being played, and then I'm also going to show you some of these games on here, because Piko Interactive did license these games. There's a lot of good games on here, and they are not illegally placed. This is something that was sold legit. It's from 2024. It's a Game Boy Advance, but it's not. But it's kind of so cute. I don't know. Well, let's look at some gameplay. One cool thing about this is it does add turbo to both your A and B buttons in all Game Boy Advance games, even with the cartridge on there, which can be very handy in certain games. It actually makes it a lot easier and more fun to play, depending on the game, perhaps. Alright, y'all, what do you think about this? Let's go ahead and just quickly go through the 40 games that are included on here from Piko Interactive. These are all licensed games. You might actually recognize a lot of them. If you don't, you maybe should, because some of these games are actually really good. And they're all legally on here, legit. Pretty interesting, pretty neat. I don't know who this is for exactly, except for the niche collector. You know, someone who just wants to collect all the weird stuff. If you want something that plays Game Boy Advance cards, you don't have a Game Boy Advance, especially if you can get that 20% off coupon, then $50 really isn't that bad. You know, just keep in mind the things that I said before. Even everything said, I still like it. I like it because it's so strange, I guess. I'll leave a full list of the games that are included on there and a link to purchase one in Amazon in my description. I don't know. I want to know y'all's opinions. I'm surprised that somebody made this in 2024, and actually, I think this is a sign of some things to come. I'll be talking about that in another video, but thanks so much for sticking around to the end of the episode. I really appreciate it. If you like this, hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already, and let me know in the comments what you think about the Neocade. Is a new Game Boy Advance on the market? What do you think? Until next time, I'll catch you in the next episode. Peace out.
Well, that was just childhood. we were all there together. And in denial would play like it was forever. And in the tall woods, we'd stay out of the weather like it was all good. Every day we made it for pleasure. We were saying whatever came to our minds, plain and simple like a tether ball reaching the sky. We were taking new heights on the swing while it was making us fly. Beat the king of the hill and everything will be fine. The thrill of everything we would find, the innocence of a child. You could see